Story 1. The ongoing cyber war is largely unrecognized, and many people are unaware of how easily they are manipulated by social media. Story 2. The inability or unwillingness of people to think critically is concerning. I do not mean to undermine or discredit your opponent's views. I am referring to the need to apply logic and evidence to one's own beliefs until only conclusions worth believing remain. The essential question should be, what evidence must I see to change my mind? The only incorrect response is, I would never change my mind about that. Story 3. Environmental issues such as global warming and climate change threaten the future of the United States. In just 1,352 days, we could face food shortages, travel restrictions due to international tensions, limitations on personal rights, and increased financial pressure on the less affluent. Misinformation and disease are likely to accelerate, and there is insufficient investment in preventative infrastructure. As a result, our society may begin to deteriorate, and the cycle of decline will continue, exacerbated by the failing education system. The younger generation may not be able to rescue us from this crisis. Story 4. People have access to a nearly limitless supply of information and knowledge at all times, and they use their devices to argue with strangers they do not care about, instead of bettering themselves. Story 5. Our natural environments are being destroyed. Ecosystems are collapsing, oceans are depleted, and water is polluted. Insects, amphibians, and birds are trying to tell us something, but we are not listening. Story 6. What worries me most is the lack of maturity, planning, and the overall apathetic nature of the people in charge. Story 7. Parents are giving their children an iPad instead of teaching them how to socialize, regulate their feelings, and be empathetic to others. It's like the biggest social experiment ever, and I see a lot of trouble on the horizon. Story 8. The rise of authoritarian fascism around the world is concerning. It is not just the United States. There are approximately 30 countries currently under authoritarian rule, including India, Russia, China, Hungary, Argentina, Turkey, and Italy. Nearly 100 countries are on an authoritarian watch list, including the United States, which is alarming. Story 9. Inflation. Why do a dozen eggs and a loaf of bread cost me a full hour's worth of work at my job? I feel like that is just wrong. Story 10. There is going to be a major shift in the world in about 5 years due to artificial intelligence, and no one seems to be talking about it. We are already seeing it impact education. The world is changing rapidly because of it, and no one seems to be worried about what will happen in 5 years. Story 11. I am convinced that most top comments on Reddit threads are now artificial intelligence bots that are simply trying to cause division. Story 12. I'm sure this was already stated, but the environment and climate, the destruction of trust in science. Most of us don't know much, but scientists have expertise. We should be listening to them. If we can have business leaders and celebrities in leadership roles in public service, then why not individuals with doctorate degrees and those in high IQ societies as well? Story 13. It almost seems like we are moving backwards as a society. We have been progressing since the start of humanity, and yet, in the last few decades, things have been shifting backwards. Intelligence is dwindling, hate is viewed as expressing different opinions, our nutrition is getting worse, and people are ignoring the increasing damage to the environment. Story 14. Freshwater scarcity. The most important river systems depend on the slow melt of mountain glaciers, which until recently were stable or growing, and are now disappearing almost completely due to human-induced global warming. This means rivers are drying up, leading to a significant water crisis for humanity. Sea level rise. Antarctica is melting more rapidly. Many people do not fully realize the implications of this for the world, as almost every major city and river system may soon be underwater. Additionally, beaches will be affected. Story 15. What worries me the most is how uninformed the population has become. People are voting in leaders who only make things worse, yet many are blind to it and believe they are doing a good job. It concerns me that we do not stand up against this. Story 16. Social media brings divisiveness. In the real world, people are becoming more empathetic, while interactions on social media tend to be more vindictive. Story 17. For everyone here who is as troubled as I am, it is important to remember that the loudest voices are not always the most intelligent. While it may seem like the voices of the cruel, ignorant, and uneducated are overwhelming, it does not mean they are the majority. They are busy screaming, while the rest of us are working hard to help those in need and fight back against oppression. History will not favor them. Fascism will not succeed as long as enough of us care enough to continue the fight. Story 18. I am concerned that our president is undermining our country from within and setting us up for total failure. I fear he will treat our country the same way he has treated many of his businesses, taking everything he can, cutting costs, liquidating assets, and then declaring bankruptcy before selling the company. Story 19. Everyone will suffer from extreme homelessness, mass starvation, and mass unemployment. It is bad now, but I am talking about a level of hardship akin to the Great Depression. By the time we realize the severity of the situation, it will be too late, and those responsible will be gone. We can only blame ourselves. Story 20. I feel that I am too old to witness when things improve. I fear I will live the rest of my life in the ongoing decline of America. What a sad turn of events. I hope this serves as a warning to other nations about how quickly circumstances can deteriorate. Education is essential. Story 21. The individual with control over nuclear weapons is an unstable individual who has been convicted of 34 felonies. Story 22. We are going through a magnetic pole shift. Before that, solar flares could take out our entire power grid permanently. The economy and politics may worsen, but you know what? We have survived this before, and some of us will again. For others, life is a gift. Live your best life. Story 23. The collapse of international order returns us to a time when countries could invade and commit various horrors against each other, with no one intervening until it is too late, leading to a situation that spirals out of control. Story 24. The rise of Christian fascism in the United States disgusts me, and this issue needs to be addressed. It is the biggest concern for me since I live in the US. Other significant issues include the genocide in Palestine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the rise of the far right around the world, conflict on the African continent, the poor state of healthcare in the US, the influence of corporations and greed in the US, Iran escalating its nuclear armament after the previous administration canceled the agreement that prevented Iran from refining its nuclear materials. Story 25. The power discrepancy between the average person and those who control the world. The next civil conflict will not resemble the American Civil War or our struggle for independence. One side will possess significantly greater firepower and weaponry than the other. Story 26. I worry about how this will affect my grandchildren. I have 3 with another on the way next month. These children won't know the world I grew up in. Will they be allowed to get vaccinated? Will they receive a good enough education to prepare them for college? Or will healthcare and quality education only be available to the wealthy, which my family is definitely not? I've never suffered from depression before, but it's eating away at me now as I think about all this. Story 27. People believe anything they read on the internet and struggle to separate fiction from reality. Today, it was announced that Elmo was laid off due to budget cuts. I have seen multiple posts about this on social media, all originating from a satire account. PBS and Sesame Street have denied this and stated that the satire account is not true and is just making jokes. Additionally, Elmo is not a real character, so he cannot get laid off. The number of sob stories over the supposed loss of Elmo is absurd. It is astounding that people believe this. Story 28. In the United States, 1. The fact that humans know we are harming the planet and jeopardizing our future, but as long as we are comfortable with our gadgets, many remain indifferent. Everything is polluted. Weather patterns are being disrupted. There are constant wildfires. Glaciers are melting at alarming rates. Species are becoming extinct, and rivers are drying up. Humans continue to consume higher levels of energy each year, and to sustain that, we are damaging all that is natural and essential for life. The way billionaires are controlling and exploiting us. The emergence of a police state. Rapid rises in housing prices far exceed wage growth, which is undermining upward mobility and pushing many downward. The least competent president in United States history is also incredibly corrupt. This will have serious implications for at least the next decade. Story 29. America willingly elected an unqualified individual to the office of president twice. The figure is an embarrassing reflection of the nation. Story 30. Not being able to differentiate between humans and bots online and the inability to discern between reality and unreality. Story 31. Where do you even start? Hate, greed, and willful ignorance at systemic levels worldwide? We are our own worst enemy, and we aren't getting better. Story 32. When the leaders of the three largest countries in the world are governed by a convicted felon and two throwback dictators with expansionist goals, I am worried that things will get worse before they get better. Story 33. The coup happening in America has led to global apathy. When right-wing populists act to undermine democracy in Hungary, Poland, or Belarus, there is widespread condemnation. Now it's happening in the United States, and no one really knows what to do because the world is so reliant on the US. Nobody knows what Trump's endgame is here, but I would be surprised if we don't see American civilians killed by the US military and political opponents jailed or mysteriously disappeared before his term is up, which it never will be because there is no way he is going to give up power. Story 34. Population decline, combined with an increasing average age, poses significant challenges. What has contributed to current prosperity includes a large population, increased specialization of labor, excess capital, and ongoing improvements in poverty reduction. The anticipated population drops are similar in scale to past complete societal collapses. Story 35. There are many problems where the solution likely requires a complete systemic restructuring of society and our way of life, but simply put, that is unlikely to happen. Story 36. It seems that no one cares about anyone else anymore. The social contract is broken. You can see it in significant issues like voting patterns and in smaller matters like the way people drive. I truly believe that if people cared more about one another, we would have the social capital to tackle the most pressing issues, such as climate change, that others are mentioning. Story 37. There seems to be a large segment of the population that wants to destroy everything. They are unaware that, despite how bad things might seem, doing so would make the situation significantly worse. Story 38. The conservative issue is a harmful force destroying the world, and it is accelerating as the decay spreads. Story 39. We are heading towards increased conflict and likely more genocide. Even if not immediate, it will be a death by 1,000 cuts. Those who are least able to defend themselves will be affected, regardless of their identity or beliefs. Many places are allowing this to happen without any defense, as long as it does not impact their lives. They bury their heads in the sand, pretending it does not exist. Alternatively, they support the chaos by providing the torches and cheap drinks for those who are already overwhelmed. Story 40. The gradual unraveling of globalization and the institutions that supported it is concerning. It is unsettling that much of what I was taught in college about how the world operates is either outdated or soon will be. Story 41. People's willingness to abandon empathy for the empty promises of more money in their own pockets is concerning. We are all being taken advantage of by the extremely wealthy. Anyone who believes that the solution to improving life is to oppress and marginalize the already powerless is sorely misinformed, and unfortunately, often gleefully so. Story 42. Due to a variety of reasons as well as a lack of desire, it seems that many people are not putting in effort in various aspects of life, including their jobs, relationships, families, communities, and even in adhering to driving laws. Effort is what holds everything together. It has always been about effort. Story 43. Ignorance, rejection of scientific principles, and choosing subjective emotions over objective truth indicate the return of authoritarianism on a massive scale in a highly militarized country. It seems like the same situation as before. Story 44. The fact that there are people actively encouraging the mistreatment of other human beings is concerning. I don't know how we can recover from that. Story 45. China, Russia, and the United States are trying to divide the world into three, exploiting smaller nations and disregarding the rest of us to save their own interests. In addition to the nuclear threat they pose, if they decide to escalate tensions, it will still impact us, even though we are not in those countries. Story 46. Fire announced they will increase prices by 2000. This type of greed is unacceptable. It is not just them, and prices should not increase by 50%. Story 47. We are going back to the 1850s, marked by unchecked expansionism, colonialism, and intense competition among major powers. History shows that there are usually a few winners, followed by desperate countries that declare war in a futile attempt to overcome their rivals. I do not believe the world is prepared for this, and I am concerned about the nations that will suffer in the process. Story 48. Two things: the fact that we are preparing for conflict over food, and if you look at the world beyond just one nation, you will understand what I am talking about. Additionally, even though this situation is approaching, our political parties continue to divide our nation instead of uniting it. Story 49. I worry more for my young adult children. I am almost 50 and have already lost a child. I am not afraid to die for any reason, and if it comes down to being placed in a camp versus dying, I would choose death. However, I am scared that The Handmaid's Tale is becoming a reality. Story 50. It feels like many of the problems unfolding early in my life, which will essentially define the rest of my life, are related to how behind we are on properly regulating things in the information age, such as the internet and artificial intelligence. We have seen the internet cripple our ability to fight a pandemic we were prepared for in a scientific sense but struggled with on a cultural front due to misinformation. The internet has also allowed a US president to sow doubt in the election process among a significant percentage of the population within a single election cycle. I hope it improves. I will work for it too, but I see it being a very long process. Story 51. Well, the Gestapo is back. There are 5 wars now, and another one is brewing along with global warming, inflation, and other issues. Story 52. Ignorance and a lack of motivation to learn, increasing self-focus, and a loss of community are all interconnected issues that exacerbate one another. Additionally, tribalism contributes to these problems. Story 53. Trump, Putin, China und der wachsende Hass auf Menschen, die anders sind. Menschen, die gegen ihre Interessen stimmen. Diejenigen, die sich in Milliardäre verlieben und diese schlechten Menschen in Regierungen akzeptieren. Diese Menschen sind es nicht wert. Sie sind uninformiert und verdienen, was ihnen widerfährt. Story 54. America is heading towards becoming the next Nazi Germany and the impact it will have on the rest of the world. Story 55. The growing disparity between the wealthy and the poor is evident. In America, the middle class is disappearing. Story 56. The future generation. How are they going to afford a place to live unless they band together like the housing complexes in China? Story 57. Apathy, greed, government overreach, hypocrisy, and the rise of Puritanism concern me. I worry that in 10 years, there will be few jobs for Generation Z and Generation Alpha due to offshoring and automation. What hope do they have for the future? I won't be here, but they will be, and what are they supposed to look forward to? Meanwhile, housing, business ownership, and even basic medical care may be out of their reach. Story 58. The division of people has turned everything into a team sport. There is no discussion, no brainstorming, and no acceptance of good ideas, regardless of one's political or ideological beliefs. Everyone blindly supports their team and criticizes anything produced by their opponents, whether it is a valuable idea or not. With approximately 7 to 8 billion people on the planet and nearly 500 million in North America, opposing views and beliefs are inevitable. However, at the end of the day, we are all on this journey together. It is not us versus them, but rather us versus us. Adhering strictly to firm beliefs without room for introspection is profoundly detrimental to our success and the long-term survival of our species. Story 59. Society as a whole seems indifferent about everything and is too busy buying and consuming without thought. Story 60. That American citizens are both engaged and informed enough to believe that the Constitution is a functioning framework. People seem satisfied doing little more than participating in weekend marches. We are on a perilous path, and we possess nuclear weapons. It makes the previous administration's response to the September 11th attacks, the USA Patriot Act, and related actions seem trivial by comparison. Story 61. The rise of fascism in the United States. The founding fathers are rolling over in their graves right now. Story 62. The people being kidnapped and sent to El Salvador are actually citizens. I have had nightmares about it. I have largely lost my faith, but I still feel compelled to pray for those poor individuals. America was supposed to fight fascism, not promote it in the 21st century. Story 63. I used to wonder how something like the Holocaust could occur without anyone doing anything about it for too long. Now I see what is happening today, and to my horror, I realize just how many people are actually supporting it. Story 64. The likelihood of conventional war between NATO and Russia is a pressing concern. At this point, it is not a question of if, but when. Additionally, my country would be under attack first. Story 65. The individuals who focus on negativity and believe they are always correct refuse to consider any perspective other than their own. When faced with differing opinions, they express hatred, harassment, and attempts to cancel. All of this occurs while they hide behind their keyboards or phones. Story 66. Nothing, really. This is just the final, unpleasant attempt by those who support wrongdoing to gain power. Spending all your time worrying is what those in charge want. So don't get caught up in their nonsense. Be productive. Story 67. I'm beyond worrying and have accepted that my situation is difficult, and I feel powerless to change it. Story 68. Humans are parasites, and no matter how good things get, if we ever start doing all the right things, we cannot coexist with this planet. We will exploit it in one way or another. Even our environmentally friendly efforts are not enough to offset even 1% of the damage we cause. From manufacturing to mining to extracting to producing to shipping to packaging to disposing. In the long run, it will never be okay. Our consumption knows no end, and it never will. It will not slow down. Meanwhile, good things happen every day, at least from our human perspective, and you can do good things. So focus on what you can influence. Story 69. We are edging closer to World War III, with a new conflict between nations occurring every year or so. Story 70. The apparent rise in fascism seems very effective for the ultra-wealthy, who can buy media outlets and platforms to control the masses. This enables them to garner support for almost anything, even when the narrative is completely misguided and relies on flawed logic. Story 71. That genocide is applauded, and peace is hated. What kind of world are we raising the next generation in? Where abuse is allowed and considered normal if you are a Zionist. Otherwise, you have to obey the government because supposedly they have our best interests at heart. Story 72. We are witnessing the complete collapse of humanity for a few extra points on profit margins and a general unwillingness to do what is right for fear of facing hard times now. Even when those hard times could lead to a better, safer, and happier world for all, we have been working for the betterment of our fellow humans for the majority of our existence, which spans approximately 12,000 to 40,000 years, while capitalism has only existed in its current form for about 300 to 450 years. Story 73. Nothing. My world is grounded, and anything out of my control isn't worth worrying about. It's about handling life. Story 74. Individual freedom in the West has become a myth. As long as people are protected, they do not care if they own nothing, have minimal choices, and prioritize convenience. Story 75. People talk about 1984 often, which is important. However, I believe we are moving toward Huxley's Brave New World faster than an Orwellian state. There isn't the same resistance, fear, or pushback. People enjoy being attached to their smartphones, social media, and technology. Many are enthusiastically supporting the ongoing issues related to substance use. People embrace today's consumerism and instant gratification. I find this troubling. Story 76. The people in power do not want to change anything. Common people have too much to manage on a daily basis to truly drop everything and help bring about change. This world is too messed up to let it continue in this cycle, but it will take millions of people all around the world to truly try to make a difference. I just do not see that happening. Story 77. The World Economic Forum and its associates are openly funding and promoting biological warfare against the general population. Story 78. The internet is going to undermine society's intelligence completely, and we are facing a future where poor choices are constantly made by our leaders because many voters lack adequate education. Story 79. The world economy and climate resemble a large game of Fortnite, and 99.99% of us have been predetermined as the losers who are left outside the ever-shrinking circle, feeling powerless to change our situation. Story 80. Blatant and staggering support for hard racism is shocking and leaves a bad taste in my mouth. People are starving and dying, barely able to afford bills, yet hundreds of thousands of dollars are donated to a racist who is targeting a 5-year-old. The economy is collapsing. The cost of living is draining everyone I know. My fiancé and I only buy groceries occasionally now because it is somehow cheaper to eat out for nearly every meal. My side gig is entertainment, and audiences are thinning because it is hard to afford to go to shows anymore if they are not priced at $5 to $10, never mind 15 or above. Trans people are being scapegoated. People just want to live their lives, and our rights are being decimated. I am specifically upset about the lack of attention to the rights of the LGBTQ+ community, as they are now coming for same-sex marriage too. Moreover, cisgender women are being harassed for appearing too masculine to be in the women's restroom. We are regressing decades in progress. Scientific research is being gutted and environmental protections are gone. Climate change is already severe, and now we are deleting publicly available research because it is deemed woke. I won't even get into the co-opting of that phrase, originally coined by black activists, by both liberals and racists to mean anything slightly diverse. This may be a very American reflection, but I feel like tearing my hair out as I read headlines every day. I am a black queer man just trying to exist, and it seems like no one cares about what is happening. The stress alone is going to age me significantly. I saw a post about why no one wants to have children anymore, and all I could think was to gesture wildly around me. I do not want to deal with this chaos. I wouldn't want to bring a child into this turmoil. Story 81. It is terrifying and baffling to me that so many people don't care. They love to tell me I am missing out by not having children, yet they don't seem worried about the planet their children will grow up on at all. Story 82. That whenever the United States completely collapses, we are very likely to take the entire world with us. Story 83. Growing authoritarianism, including in the United States, and the recent significant reduction of all foreign assistance to help those in need worldwide contribute to a world that is becoming less free and less safe for people. Story 84. The number of people, particularly in the United States, who are eager to strip others of their rights, which do not remotely affect them, is alarming. Additionally, many individuals simply repeat popular catchphrases of the day without taking a moment to verify ridiculous claims. If something sounds insane, it is likely not true. I am not sure if the internet is making people less informed or if many people have always held such views. Regardless, anti-intellectualism is significantly harming our society. Story 85. There is significant division between people over trivial reasons, and everyone forgets that we are all human beings with many similarities. Place an Israeli and a Palestinian next to each other, and I cannot discern a difference. They dress similarly and speak similarly. I am confident they eat the same food. The same applies to India and Pakistan. Story 86. The possibility that the United States will devolve into an authoritarian state is concerning. I estimate a 10% chance of this happening because the individuals involved are not particularly intelligent, and primarily because the states will likely resist such a shift. However, a 10% chance of adversely impacting the world is quite alarming. Story 87. Whether I will live to see brighter days than I saw in my youth. I am not young, and this situation will take a long time to shift into whatever form comes next. Story 88. How ego, arrogance, bigotry, and greed result in men with excessive power making foolish decisions, regardless of their intelligence. As a species, we are capable of creating a world that is far better if selfish individuals step aside. I am unsure if a world that grants women equal power would be better, but I am fairly confident it would not be worse. As a man, I know this personally. While we may be less emotional, we often react much more strongly to perceived offenses to our ego, honor, or social standing. Story 89. Tariffs. Trump has no idea what he is doing with them, and I am convinced he simply does not understand how trade between countries and manufacturing capabilities work. Story 90. Human rights, human life, and common decency, including compassion for others, do not seem to matter anymore. These values are viewed as obstacles to overcome. Empathy is disregarded. Everything I believed we once stood for is fading away. Story 91. America is swan diving into fascism with someone who is clearly mentally declining at the helm, and people are actually cheering for this. Story 92. With everything else going on, restoring the livability of the only planet we can inhabit is near the bottom of everyone's priority list. We are overlooking the groundwork being laid for our own extinction. Story 93. In global politics, the value of a human life is not absolute. It is calculated, categorized, and often weighed against race, geography, and political convenience. Nowhere is this more evident than in the starkly different ways the world responds to the Israel-Palestine and Russia-Ukraine conflicts. When Israel bombs Gaza, killing thousands, many of them children, it is framed as part of self-defense. Entire families vanish under rubble. Hospitals are destroyed. Aid is blocked. Yet the international community, especially in the West, shrugs or worse, justifies the massacre. Journalists who dare to humanize Palestinians risk losing their jobs. Protesters are arrested. Critics are silenced under the expanding umbrella of anti-Semitism, which is now being weaponized not to protect Jewish communities, but to shield a government from accountability. But when Russia invades Ukraine, the world erupts. Rightfully so, war is unjust wherever it occurs. Yet the contrast is glaring. The moment Ukrainian civilians were targeted, headlines screamed, politicians united, and military aid flowed. Refugees were embraced, sanctions imposed, and Russia was swiftly declared a pariah state. Sympathy poured in for the blonde-haired, blue-eyed victims, unlike the brown-skinned children of Gaza, whose death toll barely earns a passing mention. What message does this send? That some deaths are more tragic than others? That the suffering of Arabs or Africans is inevitable, tolerable, even deserved, while that of Europeans is a global emergency? This hypocrisy baffles me. When Palestinian blood is spilled, the world calculates strategic alliances. When Ukrainian blood is spilled, it mourns as if its own children were lost. We cannot continue pretending that the global order is based on universal values. It is based on selective empathy. The moral decay is alarming. Justice is so foreign to us. This boggles me. There are some things that I wish would make sense to me. In the meantime, I'll just endlessly wonder. Story 94. I have come to terms with the fact that humans will always be a destructive species that will find endless ways to create conflict or destroy anything in their pursuit of wealth, power, and status. My current stance is one of total apathy. If the planet is destroyed and humanity goes extinct as a result, I would not feel sorrow. Story 95. Many young people are turning away from democracy, influenced by social media and algorithms on beliefs in polarization, and a general push towards anti-intellectualism. Considering the situation for young people, it is understandable. Special interests and corporations have effectively used democracy in many countries to hinder progress when it threatens their advantage. Those with wealth and power manipulate social media and partisan news to create conflict, distracting us from addressing these issues while they deplete our wealth, land, and resources. I recognize how difficult this is for me, someone who has had many advantages in life, as well as for many others around my age from various backgrounds. This situation makes me distrustful of the notion that those in charge care about us. It deters me from making significant life commitments, such as buying a house or having children, because my job may be automated or outsourced without warning, and access to healthcare and education is diminishing. This concern arises before considering global warming, war, and the current economic circumstances. I struggle to see how the situation will improve and fear it may worsen. Story 96. There are many serious issues approaching, yet most people believe it won't be a significant concern. Story 97. Nuclear war will kill me before climate change. I want to smugly say see to all the deniers when the climate finally breaks. I don't want to die in a blast. Story 98. A global trend of worsening corruption, deteriorating human rights, collective punishment in foreign policy measures, and the increasing frequency and intractability of wars is evident. Story 99. The fact that everyone believes their sense of justice is objective truth. The concept of playing devil's advocate is often criticized. Yet that is precisely what empathy and compassion entail. The ability to entertain and understand ideas that differ from your own. You do not have to believe in them or align with them. However, alienating individuals without understanding their perspectives leads to primitive tribalism, which is counterproductive. No one can see beyond their own biases, and there are many individuals who struggle with mental health issues and express how their minds do not function properly. Yet they demand that others listen to their views on how the world should operate and label everyone who differs as evil. It makes me feel overwhelmed. Story 100. We Americans fought fascist dictatorships only to become one, and there is no alliance to fight this axis. Story 101. The influential figures in politics pretend to be tough, but in reality, they are beholden to the gas and oil industry. Story 102. The rise of fascism. It was strange seeing the media all week celebrating Victory in Europe Day with specials, articles, and documentaries about how we defeated fascism 80 years ago, while those same outlets continuously platform fascists such as the Trump administration and Reform UK, as if it is normal. Story 103. Loss of biodiversity and habitat for all the unique and wonderful creatures our planet has spawned. Sure, our world may continue to turn for humans without the others, but it is very sad, in my opinion. Story 104. I worry every day that my country will destabilize to the point of civil war, and that my government will target its own citizens. Story 105. It is concerning. I don't think we are being responsible as a society. We are not doing enough to address climate change, and artificial intelligence is evolving so quickly that we can't keep up with it. People are using it without fully understanding its implications and potential consequences. The political situation is also problematic. It all seems to be heading in the wrong direction, which is unfortunate. Story 106. A new layer of force projection in artificial intelligence and robotics, combined with an extremely hostile geopolitical climate, has never gone well. Story 107. I am a millennial. I grew up in a small coastal village in India, surrounded by trees, wildlife, and good neighbors. Over time, I observed how people blindly married, had children they did not have time to care for, cut down trees, built houses along water paths, destroyed nature, and competed aggressively for money. The early phase of capitalism seemed better, providing more money and luxuries. I sensed it would eventually fail, even in America, but I believed we still had time. I always thought issues like extreme heat, nuclear war, water scarcity, diseases, wealth inequality, and riots would be problems for future generations. However, things escalated quickly, and now these issues have become my problems before I retire. Due to my difficult childhood and other reasons, I never had children, which is the only thing I feel positive about. The only option for survival now is to make as much money as possible to afford livable and green spaces. Currently, only the wealthy can secure clean, safe neighborhoods. While I appreciate the freedom and opportunities one have compared to previous generations, I am not looking forward to societal collapse in my lifetime. I sense a general lack of hope. Not many believe the future is bright. Sometimes that gut feeling that something is off and things are going to worsen is accurate. Many of us feel this way. Most have given up, exhausted by poor jobs, relentless inflation, and the chase for money just to exist in peace. We carry on because there is no alternative. Things are getting worse, and this decline is occurring in my lifetime. Story 108. As a child, I was deeply interested in learning about the Holocaust because of the impact it had on me. I read many books and studied the subject extensively on my own. As I grew older, I continued to learn, even saving money after high school to visit the Dachau concentration camp. 11 years after my trip, with all the knowledge I had gained, I never anticipated seeing parallels to those events in real time where I live. I am grateful for the knowledge I have acquired, but I am genuinely horrified by what I am witnessing. Feels unreal. No one can change my opinion about how I currently feel. One of the most troubling aspects is the complacency of many people, coupled with a refusal to believe that such atrocities could ever occur again, especially in America. However, that attitude is precisely how millions of people were eradicated, and most were unaware of the extent of the horrors until it was too late, largely because of collective complacency at the outset. One clear lesson from every survivor's testimony is the importance of not allowing such things to happen and not standing idly by when witnessing fellow humans being stripped of their humanity. It often begins small and subtle, with people convincing themselves it is not that bad. They believe events like that would never happen again. But that mindset will inevitably determine how this situation unfolds. History is preserved for a crucial reason. Story 109. Moving rapidly toward a United States where pregnancy cannot be terminated for any reason and where women and girls are forced to carry pregnancies against their will. Story 110. Men in power behaving irrationally and turning their anger into violence against others. If two leaders are angry with each other, rather than send others to fight on their behalf, they should step into a boxing ring and settle it themselves. Leave the rest of us out of it so we can lead productive and peaceful lives. Story 111. We are on the brink of war. Not just one war, but many wars over various issues. Story 112. People are losing their ability to communicate and find common ground. I have observed disagreements as minor as a bump in the street nearly cause group panic because tensions are so high. Everyone is in their own little bubble, and when it is burst, the chain reaction could be very disturbing. Story 113. Transgender individuals are facing significant challenges from the United States and United Kingdom governments. I am in Australia, protected and safe, but every time I use the internet, there is always something new that causes my stomach to knot up. Story 114. The 21st century has been quite depressing. International politics resembles the 1920s again. There is no consensus or plan regarding climate change. The narrative surrounding artificial intelligence feels like something out of a Terminator movie. It seems like we are heading toward an apocalyptic future. Story 115. Smart individuals working for wealthy individuals create products that further enrich the wealthy, rather than intelligent people developing solutions for all. Story 116. Zionism is a pervasive issue that has infiltrated nearly all corners of the globe through financial institutions, technology, and political systems. It is no longer just about a free Palestine, we are all affected. Story 117. India, Pakistan, Gaza, Ukraine, and the United States are issues of concern, including the treatment of marginalized communities. Story 118. Loss of culture and morals and what is right. Propaganda promoting ignorance and degeneration. Destruction of family and relationships. Story 119. Global warming and the reemergence of fascism completely puzzle me. History has shown that fascism does not work and only increases hate. It solves nothing. Story 120. The fact that those in charge are working to maintain their control goes against the very foundations of our country. These individuals also deny and cut funding for climate change initiatives aimed at reducing future harm. Meanwhile, they are attempting to force women to have children and are taking away jobs. The future appears extremely bleak. Story 121. The genocide in Gaza is reaching its inevitable conclusion, leading to the complete devastation of the Palestinian people. It is horrific. The wealthy continue to accumulate more wealth while the poor grow increasingly impoverished. There are concerns regarding Russian interference in Western politics. The Christian right in the United States is gaining influence, resulting in diminished rights for women, transgender individuals, and LGBTQ+ people. Tensions are escalating between India and Pakistan. Story 122. Things look positive for the first time in years. India and Pakistan go to war every few years. We are stepping out of the shadow of identity politics and into the light of a merit-based future. We have the globalists on their heels. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.